Right, let's start. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick check that you can still hear me. Okay, super. We are here to discuss what local authorities and public authorities in more general need in terms of using innovative financing on a larger scale, especially when, for various reasons, they have reduced or limited access to subsidies. We have organized this webinar as part of our activities under a project called Prospect Plus, which I will tell you more about in a second. But first of all, my name is Sylwia Słomiak. I work for Eurocities, and we are part of a consortium of many international organizations which coordinate this project. We have managed to gather really fantastic speakers today, 11 of them, which I think is quite rare for online events. And thank you everyone for finding the time. So we will share various examples, case studies that will be both inspirational, but also will inspire our conversation about what's working, what's not working, where there is hope, where maybe some public authorities see less hope. And we will also have an opportunity to hear some recommendations from public authorities, but also to hear from representatives of the European Commission and from the investor side. So that you know what's available, what's coming up, what you can use, but also so that they hear what is the situation on the local level when sometimes you are not able or you don't have opportunities to really go beyond your local level and speak to those who should know your situation. So let me start by telling you a little bit about what Prospect Plus is and why we are organized this meeting today. We are a consortium of, as you can see here at the bottom, international city networks, research institutes, but also energy agencies and cities, which work together to deliver, first of all, capacity building for public authorities and public energy agencies. So we do it through so-called peer learning system, which means bringing together those local public authorities which would like to learn about innovative financing instruments and those which already have some experience, either are very experienced or have tested some instruments and have done some initial steps and are happy to share those experiences with others. So we organize study visits. Everything is free of charge. We are not a commercial project. We are funded from EU-funded Horizon 2020 still, now Horizon Europe. And we also organize various initiatives such as running a community of practice, which is open to everyone who registers, not only our mentors and mentees. We also organized master classes, 2 main master classes throughout the few years of our project. We just had a very interesting event just 2 weeks ago in Brussels, where we were able to invite both our mentors, mentees, but also members of the community of practice, which is really a bonus of joining, where you don't have to commit too much time. And we run policy dialogue, which is aimed at understanding and voicing the needs of public authorities and hopefully making innovative financing more accessible and more interesting. We will organize replication events. So today we will not have the time to go into much detail of some of the projects you will hear about, but I'm sure you will get interested in those. So please do look for my emails because I will be telling you more about when you can learn more and learn enough to be able to replicate or copy some of the solutions. What do we mean by innovative financing instruments? most of all, those are not something completely new. So by innovative, we don't mean something that has not been ever implemented or researched. We talk about those instruments that are not subsidies and have not been very popular yet everywhere in Europe. Of course, there are different local contexts, there are different policy contexts in various countries, in various regions. So there is more interest in some of those instruments, like working with ESCOs, for example. But in some areas in Europe, they are not that popular yet. We know, and Georg from DG Energy will tell us a little bit more as a reminder, that the climate and energy targets for local authorities for Europe as such, but really going down to the local level, are very ambitious. We or you have to do a lot, and simply there is not enough public funding to do so much in such a short time. Also, good news, there are investors, private investors, interested in the topic already. So there are different pools of money local authorities can use, and this is really the moment to learn how to do it and to be more competitive once you really want to start doing it. So by innovative financing, we mean, for example, citizen finance, which can be energy cooperatives, but also crowdfunding, energy performance contracting, known to some as ESCO models, internal contracting, green bonds, guarantee funds, soft loans, revolving funds, and third-party financing. We also cover those, let's say, instruments which blend public funding with private funding, where you can start using and learning how to use innovative financing by getting a grant, for example, and then testing the waters. Also using subsidized loans from banks, etc. So there are many options, and this is what we want to share. Under the community of practice, everyone who is not registered yet is really very kindly invited and encouraged to register, because like I mentioned, we run a few initiatives open to everyone. It's not application based, it's registration based, and then you get access to a collaboration platform, to the online meetings only for members, so in smaller groups, and you also can join our policy dialogue webinars as speakers, sharing your examples, like some of the speakers today. And you can also participate in policy consultations. I think all of you got the link from me, or you have seen it in the agenda, that we really want to understand what the reality is. It may be anonymous. Don't worry if you are not an official representative of your municipality or city. We really want to know what employees of public authorities think. And we will not share your names, but we want to really understand what's the actual reality. During the consultations, in the form of a survey, we've asked some of these questions. So what is your opinion about what impacts access to innovative financing instruments? Because this is key in terms of making sure that you get enough support to learn, but also that we can suggest some instruments or some ways to support you in future if they are not available yet. So we want to know if your organization is already using or planning to use innovative financing instruments, and if yes, what motivated you to do so? If not, what were the main problems and barriers? Is it specific to your country? For example, some of the legislation in your country might be not suitable. And here, just a quick overview of the results we have seen so far. I will publish it in a few days, so you get more information. But the main result, or the main information we got, is that in general, public authorities are optimistic, so they see the potential, and either they are already using to an extent those instruments, or they are willing to use them, but they need more support. So still, even if they are willing to, but they need more support, this is already positive. But of course, I'm not saying that we don't need to do more. We also asked many questions to understand what are the attitudes are, what your opinions are. And I've highlighted here in yellow those that got most answers, which basically suggest that the legislations and regulations on the national level might not be suitable everywhere yet. And these are the tricky ones that need to be addressed. Public authorities need more capacity, so knowledge. So project like ours hopefully addresses this to an extent, and there are more projects like this, which Christina will shortly mention also, or an overview of what you can use to participate in those projects. The market needs to be more developed. For example, there need to be more reliable ESCO companies, for example, in some countries. And there needs to be more advisory support, which means, for example, free advisory support from the national or EU level, where you or local authorities, public authorities would feel they would fill their capacity gaps, they would get some advisory, they would get some templates, etc., and they would be able to then start using those instruments more often. When it comes to what motivated public authorities to start using them, here we have pretty similar percentages of replies, slightly more for the size of the funding gap. So there was just not enough money for investments that couldn't wait, and that was the main motivator. And also because the staff increased their knowledge through different means, also because of peer learning and exchanges, and they were more comfortable with trying the new instruments. So what we will do after the webinar and in future, very important for all of you representing public authorities, is that very soon we will be announcing application process for our new last learning cycle, where you can join as both mentees and mentors. Look for the information from me and on our website. We will probably publish the information and even the call already in January or February. So it's really short. If you're interested already, you can fill in the expression of interest even without waiting for the application process. And then we will know what the general needs are. We will contact you directly when there is an opportunity. Also, if you are from France, we have just launched application process for a French local group, which will be on interacting, and Sandrine will tell you a little bit more about interacting. This is already on our website. You can already apply if you are in France and you want to join a French group. We will continue the policy dialogue. We will organize replication webinars very soon, going more into detail of the case studies and examples you can use. We will be preparing some recommendations also based on our discussions, and we will be organizing various activities just for our mentors, mentees, and members of the community of practice, which, for example, are some closed meetings for smaller groups on various topics that we cover. And this is it from me as an introduction. I have seen that we have Diana with us. You might have noticed in the chat that Diana is helping with sharing information about what's going on. She is our communication guru in the project. If you have any easy to answer questions, please do post them in chat. Diana will answer them or share links. And if not, we have time for discussion. So please also do post your questions. We will go back to those questions during the discussion, or we will keep them until the end after all of the sessions. I see a thumbs up and time up for me. So let's now move on to our first bunch of speakers. Miguel from Cartif, I never get it right, Sanela from CRISFT, and Sandrine from Albertville. They will tell us shortly about their project and their quick recommendations. If you have any follow-up questions, we will go back to them after the second panel discussion. Miguel, over to you.
Okay, so well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Silvia, for your very kind invitation to be part of this panel, which is well super interesting. So I'm really happy to share the stage with the other panelists to discuss about this topic. My name is Miguel Garcia.
Sorry. Tercühanı geçiyorsunuz.
Oh. Okay. My name is Miguel Garcia. I work for CARTIF, which is a research institution based in Valladolid, in Spain, where we have been working on several projects related to different fields and different topics, among them working with cities in the field of smart cities and communities and sustainable cities, contributing to different aspects of sustainability in the city and city transformation. It's a bit of challenge to be the first one, but also it's an opportunity to share some reflections. And I would like to start precisely with a reflection about the way in which we are and the big challenge that we have on our hands, which is, well, cities transformation towards achieving the objective of climate neutrality by 2050, which is quite challenging. And as you know, in some cities which have committed to the city's mission by 2030, which is more challenging than, well, as objective. And this, it's really important that we consider and we think of, well, how the transition will be implemented and how the decarbonization of cities towards climate neutrality will come, and especially considering that the challenge is for cities, and this means for cities as a whole, and not only for public authorities. The challenge is not only for the municipality, but is for all the stakeholders and all the actors that are involved in the cities. As you know, well, the cities that have committed to this city's mission, they are working on delivering the Climate City Contract, which is basically integrated of three main components, which are the commitments, the action plans, and the investment plan. From the cities that have already been working on that and have already delivered these climate city contracts, and from the first analysis, they have realized that when delivering the investment plan, actually the level of investment that will come from public money is very low compared to the required investment that is needed to come from the private sector. This means that we have to leverage and we have to ensure mapping all the benefits for all the stakeholders in order to ensure that all this private investment that is required for the transformation of the city is coming, and it's well catalyzed through the appropriate instruments in order to be implemented in the projects that we have to implement towards this objective of climate neutrality. And we need especially to leverage the potential of citizens for two objectives. First, to integrate the needs of all the citizens in order to ensure an inclusive transition. And then second, in order to bring closer the concept of climate neutrality to the citizens, because some citizens, they think that climate neutrality has nothing to do with them and is something that has only something to do with the municipality, and it's a political commitment, and the municipality will take care about this. And this is not the truth, because if we want to deliver climate neutral cities, we all have to be climate neutral citizens, and this is very, very important. So we have to foster and we have to leverage the potential of all the citizens and of all the stakeholders in the cities through mapping the benefits, the direct and the indirect co-benefits related to this objective of climate neutrality, in order to ensure that investments that are available are well implemented through these instruments. Because I guess there is a kind of agreement on the fact that the technologies that we need for the climate transition are there, the money is there, and now it's a matter of connecting this money with the technologies and with the projects that are required. And this will only come if we are able to foster and to leverage the demand coming from the citizens. So within this framework, we've been working in several projects, and I'm bringing today 3 examples of different sets of projects in which we have been implementing different sorts of combination of instruments in order to ensure the implementation of these actions. Projects that cover a wide range of different levels of public investment, but also private investment catalyzed through these instruments. The first one is a project that we implemented here in the city of Valladolid, Valladolid, along with the municipality of Valladolid and some local stakeholders, in order to renovate a district of 400 dwellings of privately owned dwellings, which is a challenge in terms of ensuring the engagement and the involvement of all these private owners of these families that live on these dwellings. The district in which we were working is made of 20 buildings, having these 400 dwellings that presented a very high level of inefficiency in the buildings and also very low level of comfort conditions. So we had to work in order to increase comfort, to increase energy efficiency, and also to implement alternative technologies in order to deliver a more sustainable district with the concept of a nearly zero energy district. And here, in order to ensure implementing all the investment required for this action, that was around 4 million euros, we had to define the way of combining different instruments that were basically the public funds coming from the European Commission, as the project was funded within Horizon 2020, and also a support from the municipality in terms of a specific grant, and then for the 30% that was needed to be investment by the owners, the implementation of two specific instruments that were an energy performance contract with the energy services company, providing the energy services to the district through the district heating network and the different systems that these dwellings have, plus the soft loan in order to ensure covering the part, the remaining part of the investment for the actions. It was very, very important to implement a really strong strategy for engagement, where we realized that the early engagement is really key and it's essential. And this is probably where we at the beginning failed, because we were just engaging with the community of owners representing the main community or the macro community, representing all the buildings, but not with the individual communities and the individual owners of all the dwellings. So at the beginning, the process was quite easy with the macro community, but then we realized that when engaging all the different owners, there were some needs and some issues that we hadn't considered in the project, and this made that we had to start a process of revising the project, of co-designing with them and co-creating the different solutions in a different manner in order to ensure the implementations. Co-creating about the solutions, but also co-creating about the scheme for the investment in order to negotiate the different conditions for the EPC and also for the soft loan. At the end, we were successful and we were able to implement the project with this scheme, and I think it's a very good example that then can be replicated with a reduced dependency on the subsidies, because the EPC and the soft loan are flexible enough in order to integrate different conditions and different aspects in order to accommodate for different projects in conditions. The second example I'm bringing today was also implemented in the framework of REM Urban, but in this case in the city of Nottingham, which is a very interesting case because it's also a very interesting pilot that now is being replicated throughout the city and also in the country through an initiative in which they have taken this as a great example, and they are replicating this solution in different cities in the UK. Through the Energy Sprung initiative, that is the model that we followed for this implementation. In this implementation, we renovated 7 homes, those that you can see here, plus other 3 homes with a different typology that are connected in a district, were 2 very specific components that made the project successful. The first one was this is social housing, so it's owned by the municipal housing company, and the model that we implemented is totally different from the previous. So the dependency on public funds, in this case as subsidies, is very low, so lower than 10%, and the rest is coming through a scheme of revolving funds through the housing revenue account of this housing company. So they invested on the renovation for these tenants, and they recover the investment through this scheme that they have for this housing revenue account through these revolving funds, where the savings go into this account as a kind of energy performance contract, but instead of having an ESCO, we have the municipal housing company. And the second element that we have here is very, very interesting, and it's also the other component for the success of this project, and it was the way in which this project was tendered and how it was contracted through a contract for performance, where instead of just tendering and setting a kind of orientative price and then deciding in terms of price, the price was fixed by the municipality, by the housing company in this case, and then the tender process was evaluated only in terms of quality and in terms of fulfillment of several conditions, among them a guaranteed energy performance. This provided flexibility to the construction companies, offering different solutions, because they could define different strategies for the technologies. So the technologies were not set as long as they keep the price within the fixed investment, and as long as they provide this guaranteed performance. This warranty was established in terms of the contract, so this means that if the performance is not fulfilled, they have penalties, and they have to pay to the housing company in form of these penalties. And this provides also the municipal housing company a guarantee of the fact that they will recover the investment, because the performance of these houses is guaranteed through this model. So this was I guess the main component that we had here, and but something that we learned is that there is flexibility to go for, and Silvia has already mentioned this, to go for innovative procurement processes, but this needs a big change of mindset in those procuring in order to evaluate following different criteria and not only price. And the third and final example is this one in which we are working now with the city of Zaragoza in Spain, in the framework of a new project, which is Neutral Path, in which we are implementing positive and clean energy districts in two cities, the city of Zaragoza and the city of Dresden in Germany. And so far, we have just started, and we are now co-designing the actions and the solutions with the stakeholders, and also co-designing the energy value chain and the map of benefits for the stakeholders. And something that we have learned so far is that, there is no unique business model for positive energy districts, but there is a wide range of options that opens, because we can use those business models that have already been tested in previous projects, but also we can exploit some assets that we can monetize. The first one is flexibility, because these districts, to be positive, they have to be flexible. So we can monetize this flexibility, implementing, for example, advanced energy performance contracting, exploiting this flexibility. And then the second asset is that we have a surplus of energy that has to be managed, and that also can be monetized and included as part of the business model in order to identify how the investments can be recovered through the different mechanisms. And there is a third component beyond that, and it's the opportunity that having districts, those connected with these connections among the buildings, we can exploit the connection among the stakeholders and the citizens through, for example, energy communities.
Thank you very much, Miguel. You have such an interesting experience with all of these projects that you could talk for a long time to us about it. And I would like to ask you a few questions when we get to the discussion part. But now I would invite Sanela to explain her project, because I think it links very nicely with what you said, changing the mindset, but also approaching some limitations that there still are. And Sanela has tested a different financing instrument than Miguel mentioned, meaning citizen financing, exactly crowdfunding or crowd investing. Over to you, Sanela.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you and to present you this project. So, Križevci Solar Roof project is very, I would say, very well known in Europe, and I think that most of you already heard about the project. It was 5 years ago. As Silvia said, we had a crowd investing, but it was a micro loan for a 10 period. So what we wanted to do is to show that citizens can and are willing to invest in public projects, public energy projects. So we had a solar power plant on a development center and technological park and on public library, so 2 of 30 kilowatts each. So to use local available resources and demonstrate that not only corporate investors will invest in such a project, that we can use citizens' finance for this. So the city didn't want to collect the money from citizens itself, so they needed to mediator. So the Green Energy Cooperative was a mediator between the city and the investors. And they didn't want to spread expand their membership, so they used microloans from citizens, so they are not a member of the cooperative. So every citizens in Croatia could invest in through microloan in this project, and they didn't need to be a member of the cooperative. So we had 93 citizens that invested in and collected 54,000 euros for these 2 power plants that were on public buildings owned by the city, and the users of the buildings and this electricity are also public entities in the ownership of the city. You can go to the next slide. So we involved lots of stakeholders because involving variety of stakeholders, local, national, and EU level was an indication that of the project's significance. When the citizens saw that Energy Cities is supporting this project, that Greenpeace is supporting this project, they were like, okay, that means something. This was the way to create also the trust on the citizens. So the main challenge was that we didn't have any legislation or alternative source of financing in public sector. So the mayor needed to be brave to go in the project where there is no regulation. And we still don't have any regulation for crowd investing. And also, we didn't have any regulation in energy communities. That's the new ones. We have like 4 years now, the energy communities regulation, but it's very limited, and non-energy community is established in Croatia based on this regulation. So we didn't have any regulation, but we still did it because we find some hybrid model. It's also not an ESCO because ESCO is a very complicated, but this was a small scale project, so we didn't want to go with this complicated procedure on ESCO services. But in some way it is ESCO, but as I said, we did the hybrid. So I would say that main lessons learned was this community engagement. You need lots of stakeholders that will show the significance of the project. You need a very high involvement of the municipality because that is also showing the citizens that it's serious. And also you need some kind of mediator because sometimes citizens don't trust in the local authorities because it's very, like in Croatia, we are very high politically society, so everyone is seeing like what party you are or something. So when you have a mediator, it's more smoother to run a project like this. So after the this project, we established a local cooperative that is Click, and I'm a cooperative manager of our Križevci local cooperative. Citizens wanted, after this project, to show that we can drive the energy transition in our community, and we are now helping our citizens to invest in solar projects on their households. We are preparing them administration for the project development, for subsidies, national and also local. But we are also educating them about energy transition and using renewable technologies, and we are now trying to establish energy communities that are still very, very limited here, but we will find also some hybrid models to involve citizens in energy transition and some kind of energy communities that we can. So we also, for this purpose, we created an energy climate office as one-stop shop for renewable energy, and we will now develop this service on energy renovation, and everything that we are now doing in our community increase demand for solar equipment, resulting in new local businesses and new jobs in this field. So we have now like six companies that are working on solar equipment installation. We didn't have any 5 years ago. We have now 15 people working on this, and we didn't have any 5 years ago. So it was a project that triggered lots of things, not only citizens' investment in a solar power plant. So we have now lots of things that are connected to this project that are happening after that. So I would say that maybe the main lesson learned is that when you go with the one project, don't see it like a one project. See it like a chain reaction. Like we were very brave in this project because we did something that it wasn't regulated. So we make some kind of hybrid, but it made a chain reaction, and now we have lots of things that we can present and that are good in our community.
Thank you, Sanela. We will come back to you as well during the questions and answers. And what I liked you said also before we talked is be brave, but also be creative. I think this is a great example of that. A side note, both Miguel, Sanela and Sandrine are our mentors in the Prospect project. So they have participated sharing those experiences you are learning about shortly today in more detail with the local authorities who wanted to visit them and really learn more about the project they represent. Moving on to Sandrine for our last inspirational bit before we start discussion.
Yeah, hello for everybody. And thanks for the presentation and the invitation, because it's really interesting, as Miguel said, to participate to this sharing of ideas and experiences. What I can say on our own experience is that we decided not to wait from partnership, from subsidies, and we decided to act by small steps, because as Miguel and Scriveci, I think, told us, is that we have a wall of investment to plan, and it's complicated. But if we don't act because it is complicated, we still have lots of energy expenses. And as you could know, Albertville is in the Alps, so we have lots of expenses on energy, and we have to stop to spend so much money. And while we were studying our action plan on building renovation, we discovered the Stuttgart experience on interacting fund. So it is really simple to explain. It is a fund that you put at the disposal of the technical actions of your departments. You agree to to transfer loans in internal departments. With these loans, you finance the measures that can induce energy savings. And these energy savings are calculated, and over a year, the next year, you say that your fund is alimented with this repayment. So it is simple, but you have to convince the representatives, the departments to go in this method. We decided to do so, to act quickly by our means, as I said, and we find it was a very good idea because it is a virtuous cycle of energy frugality, and it was what we wanted to get at the end. The mayor accepted to put on that fund about 100 euros at the beginning. And we also decided to boost that fund with other resources as our electricity tax. So now we have at our disposal about 700 euros per year to invest in our energy savings that were not already planned in our investment plan. It is the interest of that method. You invest more than what you have imagined before, because you affect resources to do so. So it's not a regulation tool. It's not a very complicated option. It's only a system that permits you to act and to decide to transfer money on that policy. So who was involved? Only the city with elected representatives, our head director, and our two departments, technical and finance. And as I explained you, the main challenges was to decide to act, even if we didn't put so much money at the beginning on that fund, to decide to act on the long term, because if you do that only for 1 year, it's with poor money, so it's not very interesting. But the interest is in the continuous process. And the main challenge is also to keep it simple, because if you begin to put on very complicated calculation operation to see if the result is well found at the end, for each measure, you spend all your money, all your resources by calculating if you were right at the beginning. And what we want to reach is to stop the inaction. So we decided to keep it simple. And for us, the main lessons learned is that small steps provide big results for us in the long term, because we do a lot of energy savings with that policy. We also discovered that it can provide a stronger partnership between our departments from technical and finance. And it is really important, because if you want to reach the climate neutrality, the climate transition goal, you have to put all the people in the same train and to go to the same way. And it's not always the same with finance and technical departments. And we also discovered that it was a very good topic to increase the recognition of our internal innovation capacity. It is a very strong force we have now to implement new things. And due to the boost we decided to put on the fund resources, we are now in capacity to invest in bigger projects. So we are now planning to act on building renovations, because as you can see on the pictures, we decided at the beginning to invest on small things because we didn't get much money. But now we have money, so we can act bigger.
Thank you very much, Sandrine. I think it's very important you told us that really those small steps can lead to big results, and you already have been implementing those bigger projects. I would like to come back to all of you during our discussion slot a little bit later on what you said about changing the mindset, because in your case you said it's simple, but I guess it's not easy when it comes to changing the mindset for local authorities. In case of your project, in your cases, Miguel, in Sanela, it was more about changing the mindset of residents and people involved. So I think it will be a very interesting point to come back to during our discussion. And now let's move on to the conversations with our panelists who represent public authorities from Slovenia, Spain, the Netherlands and Poland. And they have had experience both working with many public authorities in their countries and working on implementing using innovative financing themselves as well. Valladolid and Warsaw are also part of the EU missions initiative, so congratulations on that. And I would like to propose to start from Vlasta, because I think you are a great example of combining both the perspective of a local authority as a mayor, but also from the perspective of an energy agency, which you are also leading, and a mentor on many projects where you work with local authorities from various countries. So what I would like to ask you at the beginning, Vlasta, is to tell us a bit about whether you have seen that your experience as a mentor and as someone using the innovative financing instruments is shared across Europe, and what main differences and hopes and barriers you have noticed working with various countries and various local authorities.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, and hello to everyone. Yeah, with this a lot of years of experience across the Europe, I can say that local level and local actors are really active, really very active. They are very brave. They always try to find something new and something they test. And they really try to, in this very fast developing energy and climate environment, I will say, they try to make the peace with it. But the most barriers that we see is that usually national governments, especially when we talk about the financing issue, so the national financing authorities or ministries, it depends on the organization, they really don't follow such a fast pace that would be needed, you know, to adapt to this. And so I think this is across the Europe pretty the same. Then we see in some governments, especially on regional level, that they can go a little bit faster, but they are very slow on the national level. So the centralized system are really very slow. But we have seen some of the good examples. So I think one of the best or the goodest point that could be taken also to national level is that when the national level, so ministries for energy or how they are organized, cooperate with the Ministry for Finance, and they give very clear guidelines, I will say, or signal to the local or regional level, then municipalities can do and implement the project very fast. So I think one of the most important issue is that they cooperate, and if they give clear guidelines where to put what, how to do it for the specific financing instruments, then the financing instruments are implemented very well. There are a lot of opportunities for the making new educate and informing and training for local authorities. So, and I think if there is the small push or small framework how to do it in this very complicated financial issue, then the local levels and local actors can really act fast because they do it. And yeah, I think that it's what is really important.
Thank you very much, Vlasta. And a follow-up question. also from your side, working in your country, in your political and regulatory context, but also speaking to other cities, what do you think is most promising in terms of the instruments, but also the approaches or the attitudes that can really help speed up the transformation, regardless of whether there is enough subsidies at the moment, right? So there is no this waiting for subsidies that could come at some point.
I think the crowdfunding and green bonds, if we look that part, these are really promising, and especially now when the energy and renewable energy communities are evolving very, very fast. So we see the people would like to be proactive. They would like to invest. They see the benefits. And if the national and regional authority are able to make very clear guidelines and framework, how to invest, where, how to do with the taxes and others, I think we will be very, very fast in developing these communities. So I think the people would like to cooperate and to give their own actions and of course money to these climate activities.
Thank you very much. I think it brings us very nicely and naturally to Alicia, who has also been involved as a mentor, but also on the ground as a representative of a public authority, a city like Juvlasta, and can tell us a little bit about what's going on the local level in terms of what's possible in Spain, rather than just examples of projects which Miguel mentioned, and also what you have noticed working with different types of local authorities in the project that we are working on together, because you've worked also with local authorities from outside the EU who are also very interested in learning from the EU.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for having me also here. As also Miguel Ángel from Cartif told us before, Valladolid have been working since a long time ago in several instruments, thanks also to different European projects, but also with their own commitment of the local authority. In terms of sharing experience with other cities, for us is very, very important in terms of increasing knowledge and learning from others. That's why, for instance, Valladolid belongs to several networks of cities, like the Eurocities and like the network of Michelin cities, and also networks of Spanish cities that work together to learn from each other, because we feel very close when we speak with other cities. We feel close and we feel that we have the same problems and the same issues. So when we speak with other, as I'm an officer, I'm not a politician, I'm part of the technical team of the city council, we see very similarities on what we face. And for us, it's very important to learn from other cities, as we are sharing here, learn from Arbilville, learn from even from Valladolid, and sharing our experience, because we have either we have local regulations and national regulations, we are all over the EU regulations. So we have even a legal and common context for everyone.
Thank you, Alicia. You also mentioned in some other meetings that you have seen that local authorities really remain in touch, even though the process of mentoring or participating in those soft projects ends. Do you have any opinion on what is actually the advantage of being in contact when maybe there is not directly money coming out of it, but really there is this interest to remain in contact with other countries, really?
Yeah, being in contact has many advantages. One of the sessions or the contacts that we may have is like this webinar. I have been on the other side for many times, listening to other cities, to other colleagues speaking about their issues, and you listen and you learn something. And in my case, I take the number, I take the notes about who is speaking at the city and so on. But when you met someone and you have this personal and in-person approach, and you're speaking with another colleague, and you connect with them through LinkedIn and so on, you remind this conversation and you count on them when you have the same issues, and you think about, oh, I think someone from Lille, from Ghent, from many other cities that we work together across Europe. I have done it several times. I wrote them. We met before in this meeting in this city in Brussels and so on, and we connect. And we have been also receiving colleagues from other cities, Spanish cities, but also cities from abroad. Even thanks to the Prospect Plus project, as we are mentored, we receive people and technicians from other municipalities. And when you have this relation one-to-one, we build like some kind of stronger bridges between the technicians, and it's also very helpful in terms of establishing consortium and meeting people and developing projects all together across Europe. So we really encourage establishing this network of cities and network of colleagues having the same problems off the record, because when we speak also off the record with the microphones off, we feel that we are like in this confidence atmosphere of sharing experiences together. Very useful.
Thank you, and it's really an important point you have mentioned of this cooperation that's beneficial also for the mentoring side, right? Because I sometimes hear from some public authorities, like, if there are no large subsidies involved and we cannot get funding for an infrastructure project, it's a bit of a waste of our time. But most of you here have a different approach and you see the benefits, even when you are acting as mentors. So theoretically, you are sharing your knowledge and your time, but you are not learning that much from others. But you do see the benefits, and that it also helps you, referring back to what Sandrine said, with those small steps to go a bit further and further. And also Valladolid is one of the examples of the very successful mission cities, and really leading on some aspects of the cooperation with other partners. So thank you very much, Alicia, for that. And on this note, I would go to Andrzej, because he represents Kraków, which also is part of the EU mission cities. And linking to what Alicia and I said a second ago, Kraków also cooperates closely with other cities, but also smaller local authorities in Poland. So Andrzej, could I invite you to tell us a bit about your role and your opinion on the future of innovative financing from a perspective of a little bit different country where I'm also Polish, where we have access still to large subsidies, and we are waiting for even more. So the situation might be a little bit different than for some of our other speakers. But I wonder, what is your opinion in terms of whether it really makes sense in countries like this to look away from subsidies and towards more innovative financing?
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Yes, Kraków cooperates with many Polish municipalities in different projects. And at the beginning, maybe I will mention for some reasons that in Poland there is low interest in complex form of investment financing. I completely agree with Vlada that the most important is national level and clear guidelines and strong support from national government. In Poland, it was easy to get subsidies from EU or from national level, so we used to use it. And also we don't have a lot of proven models and developed paths of conduct, how to operate with more complex method. I would like to also mention a pure financial situation of our local governments. Because of changes in our tax system, we lose part of our incomes. But this is also the chance. This is also the reason that we have to develop different kind of financing. And in Kraków, we use several methods of financing. First, low interest loans. It is easy and maybe not interesting, but also PPP formula for a large investment like construction of tram line or renovation of street lighting. We also try to use ESCO formula, and I can see two barriers for ESCO, because in our cities, buildings are the most important part of decarbonization. And these barriers are, at first, buildings are in poor technical conditions, so they need a lot of additional cost for reshape them. So it's not possible to return debt from savings. And also I can see that our ESCO companies are especially interested in installation and control systems, control works, and they are not interested in building part of the work, building renovation, because it's more complicated, more risky, and also returns are much more longer. And under the mission, we developed a pilot project called NEST, and the aim is to develop solutions to enable the renovation of buildings on a massive scale, because we need massive scale, not particular buildings, but massive scale. And these solutions should be based on a few mechanisms, like first, entire buildings, quarters are subject of renovation, not individual buildings. So we look for the quarter. Also, all sectors are taken into account, including renewables, including electromobility, stormwater drainage, greenery, and also we have to look at social problems, because people are the most important, not buildings. And the third issue is that the process of renovation of buildings and also financing should be organized not by the building owner or manager, but by external entity, because it's make this easier, quicker, and also we can adopt innovation and this kind of innovative financial schemes. So we work on this pilot. We are very interested in collaboration with other cities. We also cooperate with CATIF in other projects. So it was a great example from Spain. I would like to use it in other cities.
Thank you very much, Andrzej. And focusing on that, you mentioned that in Poland, residents can use preferential loans and subsidized loans, the same coming for local authorities, which takes me back to Sanela, who also noticed that the fact that there are low interest rates from the banks nowadays is also a good argument when talking to residents and inviting them to invest their money in crowdfunding schemes rather to keep their money in the banks. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask Sanela to go back to you to tell us a little bit more how this impacted the way you were talking to residents, for which the crowdfunding was something new, especially when the regulations were not really foreseeing crowdfunding, but yet you could use this argument to convince them to invest in this project rather than keep their money in the bank.
Yeah, like you said, interest rate in banks are very low. They were in this time, I think, around 1%. And we offered them 4.5% in the development center project and 3% in public library project. So that was very big difference between keeping the money in the bank or investing in the project. So but they were not just investing because of this difference, but they were also investing because it was something innovative, and because they wanted to contribute to the project that is producing renewables. So that was also very important to the citizens to decide to invest in the project. So these two I'm missing the English word. These two arguments were the main reasons to invest in the project. Yes. But we also know that I think that in whole Europe, but also in Croatia, is very a lot of money in savings, citizen savings, just keeping the money in the bank, even with this low interest rate, but also at house, they are hiding the money in their closets or something under the bed. But it's millions of euros, I would say maybe billions. But they are afraid to invest. They're also lack of financial knowledge to invest this money somewhere. So I think that we need to work on this, mostly on this, because when I see the structure of citizens in my municipality, a lot of them are very old people, not used to invest money. So they're also digitally not on digital level of knowledge also. So we need to put efforts to educate people to invest.
Thank you. And you're also bringing a very interesting topic also of differences in different countries of the approach of residents towards local authorities. You mentioned earlier that there is no trust, at least in your country or in case of your project. So having the intermediary was an added value. In some other countries, post-communist countries, there is no real willingness in chipping in. You know, crowdfunding is seen as something from the previous era where there were kind of bricks. In Poland, we call them selling bricks. And this is something that people don't really like. And they think that municipalities, their local leaders should take care of funding the money. So it all goes back to the mind shift that we need. Being aware of running behind time, because the conversation is so interesting, I would quickly jump to Jolene, because this also refers to what can be done for residents, for owners of individual houses. However, it's still not quite easy because of some larger or kind of more difficult to address limitations and problems more on the legislative level. So could you, Jolene, tell us a little bit more about your project and what the actual problems are?
Yes, thank you for this invitation and share our experience at the reality at local level. I think I can connect to especially what Vlasta said, that cooperation is necessary with financial legislative ministries and energy performance contracting that has been told about by Miguel. At local level in municipalities, realizing energy efficient homes is more important than ever. However, the deep energy renovations, as we are aiming for right now with time coming near, they are not equally accessible and affordable and attractive to all homeowners. So broad implementation of cost-neutral and building-related energy performance contracts would be a solution. Therefore, Amersfoort was brave and creative, like Sylvia just mentioned, and in cooperation with other local and regional public authorities, we have invested in the development of such an instrument, taking into account the interests of all stakeholders. This instrument was broadly supported by many high-level stakeholders from civic society in the Netherlands. And the design of the instrument is also in line with what we are aiming for in the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. However, after having done a procurement for a service providing offering such energy performance contracts, a reality reveals a legal barrier concerning the scope of consumer credit regulation. And it appears it's not clear on the scope with regard to the innovative and integral nature of energy performance contracts. And as you can imagine, this hinders further progress, and our pilot is on the shelf now because legal uncertainty hinders investments by third parties. And also we can't ask a service provider or an ESCO to take the risk of a fine by the financial authority. That would be a bit weird to ask that as a municipality. So this is really sad. It's really tough, and like Vlasta said, cooperation between the different ministries is really important. However, European guidance could be of help for solving this at national level, because the legislation on consumer credits directly originates from a European directive, which is mandatory to be transposed. So I really hope that that from a European level there could be a guidance on how to implement this credit legislation, taking into account the integral nature of energy performance contract. We are all working on, and as we see the benefits. I think we could draft some clarity on what should be within the scope of the credit regulation and what could be out of scope of the credit regulation, because we safeguard the interests of the homeowners by demanding certain criteria in the energy performance contracting. But this is just to illustrate a hurdle reality on local level when you really start implementing ambitions and IDs. Thank you for sharing this with you. Sorry,
Thank you,
I don't
Elaine.
have
I think it's yes, unfortunately, because we really wanted to bring all of you together. We don't have that much time, but I think it's important to flag it up, and we will follow up after the webinar to also explain what you meant. Andrzej, before you leave, because I understand you need to jump out in a second, could you in one sentence maybe just tell us what potential you see in the EU missions in terms of making innovative financing more popular?
What we are going to do in our next project is kind of handbook for Polish cities to make the transition easier to show the net zero consortium transition map. We are also going to prepare exemplary solutions for building quarters. We are also working with our national developing agency on special model to simulate energy system or all energy systems in the city. So we would like to be sure that quarters are well planned in accordance with the whole city. And also the main goal is to prepare recommendations for incentives and support system for our government. So at 12 we have a meeting with ministries, Polish ministries on this topic. So I'm sorry I have to leave for a few moments, but what we are doing in mission is very important for other cities. Many cities ask how they can join to the mission, or how can get fruits from our work. So establishing, maybe not establishing, developing a network of cities interested in a mission, in a quick climate transition is also a very important part of our work.
Thank you very much, Andrzej. So it all really, if I can summarize it and if I can check that I understand correctly, it all goes back to really getting involved in national level, which is probably the trickiest part, given also the focus of our webinar today, but also really changing mindset and looking at which stakeholders, whether it's local authorities, whether it's stakeholders, meaning energy agencies or regional authorities, can get involved and can get inspired, and also see the potential and the benefits of soft projects where you cannot get a lot of money. You can maybe just test some solutions, like in terms of a project from Miguel. But there is still, even though we are struggling with time and capacity, there is still added value with that, because then you can trigger something that will in the end help you find additional financing and support. Thank you very much. I would like to use the opportunity that some of our speakers kindly suggested to or agreed to stay a little bit longer. So one final question to Miguel, coming back on changing the mindset and convincing residents to look at innovative financing instruments such as EPC. You struggled to actually convince people in Valladolid to join this project that was testing EPC, but then you found a way, you succeeded after long negotiations with them. Could you briefly tell us what the main problem was and how you approached it in a form of recommendations for others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it was very kind of a complicated process, because we thought at the beginning that, we thought that the model that we were offering was the best one, and the combination of technologies and the combination of the financing instruments. And also we had somehow the agreement from these representatives of the macro community, but we hadn't got in touch with the rest of the residents and all the private owners of these dwellings. So we then realized that as we didn't involve them from the beginning, it was, at the end we had a complication in the fact that they didn't feel part of the project. So they considered that we were offering something that they actually didn't need, and that they hadn't been part of defining the solution. So the way in order to change the process and to get them involved was to implement a process of co-creation with them and co-designing with them, in order to involve all those that wanted to be part of the process, also through offering external support, as for example technical advisors, legal advisors, financing advisors that we had to somehow involve in the project, for them to get this support and to get someone external to the actors that were part of the offer that we were making, in order to get this external advice. So at the end, through redefining the model, redefining the solutions in order to be better adapted to their needs, and also offering this external support, we were able to somehow get them involved and got the agreement from them. And this takes me also to, in connection to what Andrew has said on the limitations of EPC when implementing, because it's true that when going for this kind of let's say integrated interventions, it's not that easy to implement the EPC contract, because usually ESCO companies go for technologies in which the return of investment is, let's say, short or somehow short. So, for example, investing on active technologies or renewable energy sources. But the truth is that the actual need is on also implementing solutions in the passive elements of the building that reduce the demand, in order to first reduce the demand to then consume more efficiently, and also to contribute to improving comfort conditions. So the way in order to ensure the success of this project, is through combining instruments, and not just thinking of the EPC as the unique solution, but combining these instruments with other instruments, as for example the soft loans or other existing financing instruments that can facilitate the implementation of the investments that are required for this sort of projects. And also another element that is very important that has been also raised today, that is educating for investing. Because when we think of, for example, purchasing a mobile phone or changing our fridge or changing our oven, we don't think about the return of the investment. We think of the product that offers the best solution to us. But when thinking of renovating our buildings, we just focus on the return of the investment, and we don't think of the benefits that we will have through investing on renovating our buildings. So it's true that the investment is usually really high, and we have to ensure somehow a return of part of the investment, especially if we are counting with a third-party investment, because we have to give this money back. But we also have to think of educating for investing or improving our homes, on contributing to climate neutrality in the city and having better built environments. And this is very, very important, and we have to start now on educating people on this.
Thank you, Miguel. And from my remember from your project and attracting or convincing residents, correct me if I'm wrong, but they basically eventually said, okay, we can try this EPC scheme, but we don't want to pay even €1 more for our electricity, which, and you found a way, right? You found a way, cooperating with banks, trying to find preferential loans, working with the ESCO. You find a way, and because of that, they eventually were interested. And it was also a nice example you gave us at some other occasion that from, I don't remember how many, was it 10 or 12 buildings? Only one did not join, and then the residents really regret it. So that also shows that it's really a snowball effect.
Yeah, we have the district is made of 20 buildings, and there was one building because they could decide for the district heating jointly, so the 400 dwellings, but then they had to decide individually for the facade renovation and the insulation of the envelope. So 19 out of these 20 said yes, but there was one building that said no, even we couldn't speak to them because the president of that community blocked all the meetings and all the communications. And then when they realized that they were consuming more and that they had missed the great opportunity, they regretted, and they published some news in the newspapers saying, we don't want to be the black sheep of the district, and we have really missed a really great opportunity that we had. So this was a really good example also for other districts in the city, that they somehow also changed their mind to say, okay, these people is regretting, it's because they have realized that it was a really good opportunity.
Which shows that showing the losses and showing the disadvantages of not joining based on some examples you can find all over Europe might also help those local authorities who are starting with a project and need to convince residents. Thank you very much. We have 35 minutes until the scheduled time, so I think we have perfect time for our third panel. And Miguel, you very nicely summarized what we have talked so far. I noted down a few things that are very nice bridge to the third panel. You mentioned that the financial advisors was something that was really needed in that project. I think many other of you also mentioned the support, additional support. You mentioned the external support. And you also mentioned that when it comes to EPC and ESCOs, which are also type of investors, what investors want, what they are looking for, is not always exactly what cities need. And there is this clash, or there is this difficulty to find a common ground so that both sides can benefit, which brings us to our third group of guests who represent EU institutions and investors. Georg represents DG Energy, and I hope you can tell us a little bit, remind us about the scale of the ambition and if there is anything new that local authorities should know, but also in terms of what kind of external external support is available, or what kind of facilitation support is available to find the external support. And then we also have Christina with us, who works for CINEA, which is the European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, which you might know when you are interested in programs such as LIFE or Horizon, for example. And there are some various instruments, initiatives, and ideas that CINEA can also offer based on what we have discussed so far. We also have Eva from DG Regio, which does something a little bit different, focusing more on what's possible in terms of working on promoting innovative financing from the more of the policy and cooperation with investor side. And finally, Alison from Bankers Without Boundaries, an organization that links, collects former investors who want to work with cities also on a more project basis in many cases. And she can tell us how to link those expectations of investors and local authorities, and what might be some of the problems that can be overcome and are just a result of not understanding what investors want and how you can talk to them as partners. Could I invite you all, Georg, Christina, Eva, and Alison, to show your faces, and let's start with Georg.
All right. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I will try to keep it really short. So when it comes to the challenges, I mean, a lot has been already said. I think that the big framework we're in is the EU Green Deal, setting the ambition for becoming climate neutral by 2050. In fact, making Europe the first climate neutral continent. So that's quite a bit of an ambition. Underneath, and even possibly more ambitious, is the Fit for 55 package, which aims to achieve quite a couple of targets by 2030 with a complete legislative package. I will not go into detail with that, but the main issue here is that all of these legislative frameworks will at some point also, if you want, trickle down to cities. So cities will be facing these frameworks and will need to tackle them somehow, because also when it comes to the Green Deal, we will not be successful implementing it when the biggest share of implementation is happening locally. Speaking of which, 75% of people live in cities. I don't know whether it has already been mentioned. Out of that population, roughly, the urban population, roughly 70% live in cities below 100,000 inhabitants. Now, these cities typically are cities which do not have the capacity or the knowledge or the staff or the means, be it budgetary or elsewhere, to take part in European programs very often. So it's fair to say that a big share of cities' interventions has to be covered by private financing, which is a bit the core of today's discussion, I understand. In this context, I would like to introduce to a couple of initiatives we have in DG Ener, but then I see also, of course, we have CINEA, we have the colleague from Regio, and there will be some complementation, I guess. We have on our end the Covenant of Mayors, which is sort of the biggest initiative of its kind worldwide, with roughly 11,000 cities being registered or signed up to it. We have the Smart Cities Marketplace, which brings together all sorts of urban projects with private financing, and as part of the process provides really with hands-on knowledge, guidance, examples from projects. That's actually where I know Miguel from this sort of context. We met a lot, quite frequently also, and so what we try to achieve here is actually with this Lighthouse program under Horizon 2020, some of which are still running of these projects, to create, if you want, a large collection of demonstrators across Europe, which can be replicated, which is very much at the heart of the marketplace, really fostering the replication, mainly with private financing, but also not denying the blending. I think that possibly the other colleagues will have to say something on that specific part. Yeah, and then last but not least, just one figure I want to throw in. The marketplace, since it's started its matchmaking operations in 2018, has matched roughly 130 projects with investments at a total of a bit more than 615 million euros since 2018. So it works pretty well. And I should also mention that, and hello, Alison, I guess we didn't meet before, that Bankers Without Boundaries is also part of the project, is part of the consortium. I stop here because I don't want to abuse my time too much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this, Georg. We will come back to you for sure. Maybe just adding on the Smart Cities Marketplace, for those of you who do not know it, apart from this matching element, there is also capacity building, and especially nowadays you have published really very useful documents and guidance that cities can use, and they are being translated into many languages. So here we would really invite you to check it out because it's really useful, especially if you are just about to start talking to investors and trying to see the faces behind the emails that sometimes are a bit scary. And also something we mentioned at the beginning, Smart Cities Marketplace is also present in the main event in Barcelona each year. So you just got back, the three of you at least, you just got back from Barcelona, where local authorities have an amazing opportunity to not only participate in conferences and presentations, but most of all to actually meet investors, to speak to investors, to see what's possible, to see also the direction of the investment, meaning also technology, and that's going on and that's happening. So I think that's also very much inspiring. I was there before the pandemic as well, and I thought it was a very, very interesting experience getting interested in the other than subsidies instruments. Christina, I thought that maybe we would move on to you because you also represent an European agency, European Commission's agency that provides a lot of support, a little bit different type of support, and it might be a bit confusing for people who are not so proficient in knowing what the various departments and agencies do. Could you tell us a bit more about what you do, and then we will also elaborate as a follow-up, sending a lot of links and information on what's currently possible.
Sure. Thank you, Silvia, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for having me here. So I'm Cristina Mestre Martinez, and I work at CINEA. CINEA is the Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency of the European Commission, and we have the mission or the mandate, if you like, from the Commission to implement funding programs to accelerate the transition towards achieving the objectives of the EU Green Deal that Georg was mentioning just a minute ago. But that's a kind of ultimate goal. And before we get to the ultimate goal, there is a number of different targets and milestones to be achieved that are instrumentalized, or if you like, laid out by different European policies. So in order to achieve those, indeed, CINEA has a number of funding or implements a number of funding programs. Some of them have been mentioned already. For instance, research programs such as the Horizon Europe program, other big infrastructure funding programs such as Connecting Europe Facility. And I particularly work in the LIFE program, which maybe some of you are familiar with. It's been on for like more than 30 years, traditionally funding work on nature conservation, biodiversity, etc. And since 2021, implementing as well the latest addition, if you like, to the LIFE family, which is the LIFE Clean Energy Transition Sub-Program. This LIFE Clean Energy Transition Sub-Program builds up or kind of continues the work of the predecessor program, which is H2020 Energy Efficiency, that has been mentioned as well this morning. And I know many of you are probably quite familiar with this. And the Life Clean Energy Transition indeed continues this program in this new post-2020, if you like, framework. So indeed, this program focuses on the achievement of the clean energy transition with a focus on non-technological aspects. So indeed, this in practice means facilitation and improvement of policies at local, regional, national level, breaking market barriers, empowering citizens, and contribution or support to achieve investments in clean energy transition, which I think indeed this is what most of you are interested in the context of this discussion. So indeed, maybe I can mention a couple of of characteristics of our calls for proposals. That's, again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We have not typically yearly calls in which we open a number of topics that are indeed addressed at these non-technological aspects of the clean energy transition in different areas of intervention. So as I said a minute ago, for instance, breaking market barriers, attracting private investments, planning for local and regional authorities. And we have a call open until tomorrow, actually. So I hope if you are working on it that you are mostly done with it. But we are already busy working on the preparation of the next call that responds very closely or aims at supporting our colleagues in the ENR, such as Georg here, to instrumentalize the implementation of the policies agreed at EU level. But discussions like today actually help us a lot as a sort of consultation phase for us to know what's actually needed on the ground. Maybe just a few interesting topics that we typically have in our call for proposals. So maybe starting from the topic I work mostly on, which is the capacity building for local and regional authorities to plan and implement the clean energy transition, under which, I know Prospect Plus is H2020, but it's this typical nature of these projects that we fund. So in this is to support local and regional authorities to move on towards the transition, because as Georg was saying, indeed, everything that is agreed at EU level will eventually trickle down to the local level, and it's essential to have them, to have the local authorities involved. And also, as he mentioned, local and regional authorities in this case as well do not always have the capacity to engage in European funding proposals, and that's why it's actually quite vital to have projects like Prospect Plus that actually aim at supporting them. So that's then there are other topics that are more specific, for instance, for the development of one-stop shops, for attracting private finance, and also PDA, our project development assistance, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which really aims at putting ideas into motion and actually achieve the eventual investments needed to put this clean energy transition ideas into motion. So for these projects, the support that we provide is, for instance, to develop a business case, to work out the financial engineering that is needed, to support in the bundling of projects, to support in the funding the investment pipeline, and eventually the projects need to actually demonstrate that the investments have been done actually and realized via a tender, via a contract. But we need to see that actually the support provided has reached the investment desired. Maybe just quickly before I conclude, because I don't want to take much time, there is, besides our call for proposals, there is also a number of initiatives that are also quite relevant in this context. The EU City Facility, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the EU City Facility, which provides lump sums and also technical support for the development of investment concepts for municipalities. There is Manage Energy as well. It was mentioned in the chat. There is a webinar next week that can be also quite relevant, and they also organize a series of masterclasses for the support of and the capacity building indeed for the development of specific measures in clean energy transition. And then other than that, maybe soft support, if you like, when it comes to peer learning or synergy creation and networking. Alicia was mentioning earlier, and I humbly take the hint that about events that actually are helpful for this element, for the networking element, and for connecting the different municipalities, not only the political staff, but even more so the technical staff that needs to be connected. So for instance, I can think of the Covenant of Mayors Investment Forum, Energy Efficiency Marketplace that took place a couple of weeks ago in Brussels. That indeed, I say I take the hints humbly, because our goal is very much that, to connect the actors and to make sure that you talk to each other. And for instance, the EU Sustainable Energy Week, which is happening every year, and now we have the applications open for policy sessions in case any of you are interested. This is happening in June, I think, yeah. And others, for instance, the contractors meetings, in which we bring together the different projects that we fund to actually, again, for you to talk to each other and connect. I'll leave it here. Because I talked too much.
Thank you, Christina. I don't think you've talked too much, because what you talked about is exactly the information many cities are looking for. And from what you and Georg said, I think it's really clear, it really stands out that the support that is available is no longer just the traditional grants for traditional research projects, but you have noticed that there is this need for advisory, there is this need for supporting developing projects so that they are finance ready, so investors get interested in them. You are now providing this possibility and help to link public authorities with investors, even if the initial phase is just to see how to talk to investors. That's still a first step that needs to be taken. So I think it's really, really very interesting, and thank you for saying that. And so this links us, this takes us very naturally to the different perspective from the side of investors before we learn what DG Regio is doing. So Alison, over to you. I would like to ask you first of all, how you see what's new in terms of how investors are getting involved in supporting public authorities through new opportunities such as non-commercial opportunities, being involved in projects such as EUCF, such as Net Zero Cities, where you provide free of charge support to an extent, you co-create some future advisory services, etc. So what is the role of investors in terms of supporting local authorities and being a partner at this initial stage?
Thank you. I mean, a massive question there, and I guess following on from what my fellow colleagues on the panel have actually said, the conclusion, and you can see it from the chat room, is that the EU system is very difficult to navigate. There's actually a lot of facilities that exist and a lot of money that is there ready to help cities across the board, but navigating them is perhaps not as straightforward as it should be. And I guess to that extent, with the Net Zero Cities project being perhaps one of the more recent ones to be set up, what we're really trying to do there is formulate a knowledge hub which standardizes and brings all of that information into one place, such that cities are able to look at their projects and say, in what part of the lifestyle is this project, and therefore what EU facility is the right place for me to send my project to or to apply to in order to get funding to help me develop that project. Investors are very keen to look at projects, and again through the Capital Hub in the cities, in the Net Zero Cities mission, once you have got that project to a bankable level, we are going to be able to do the matchmaking and the last mile engagement with the investors. And again, what is an investor? You know, there are a large network of people out there, and I'm just going to share 3 slides with you because I think that they sort of speak to the questions. And apologies, I haven't got the Net Zero Cities logo on it because I wasn't going to share them, but I do in the beginning there. But there's just a few good things that I think are worth looking at. So if you work with me here, I hope everyone can see that. So I guess the main topic I wanted to sort of look at is what is bankable, because that's certainly the discussion that is missing a lot in terms of city knowledge of projects. You know, and through the Net Zero City program, we have a lot of projects that have come up, but just because they're good projects doesn't mean that investors are necessarily ready to put money to work. So, you know, what does bankability mean and when is it bankable? Projects have to be financially viable and do have to generate a return for investors. Even people who are willing to take lower returns than normal because of impact or sustainability mandates will still want to know that projects are financially viable, and as a result, each project will have to have done risk reward scenarios and financial modeling behind it. Risk and scenario analysis also obviously very important when thinking about whether a project is bankable, and certainly you need to think about enforceable contracts and clear objectives for how they're going to be used. And so I guess most important of that is sort of financial viability. So a sort of checklist for what makes a project financially viable. Cash flows, what are the cash flows coming in and out? Costs, what are the costs of the project? And therefore, what is the payback profile for the project? And therefore, thinking about whether it is an investor project or perhaps something that does need to be funded by grant money, because if there is no payback profile, you're not going to be able to repay the loans or indeed your investors. So certainly some stuff to think about there. And again, understanding the difference between debt and equity, you know, loans versus equity in a sort of project is another important concept to get behind. And certainly we're doing a lot of workshops with cities across the Net Zero City platform to ensure that these concepts become a little bit more commonplace when talking to cities and developing their projects. And I guess the other thing that the Net Zero City platform is hoping to bring in is a city financial specialist. So for the cities in the mission cities in the platform, there is going to be dedicated national resource of financial specialists who will be able to work with the cities just to help with that capacity problem, and in terms of actually growing the capacity and growing the knowledge base in the cities themselves. So we will be looking to put city financial specialists in to at a national level, so they'll cover multiple cities through the Mission City project, and certainly work with cities to actually understand how you can finance things. And I guess just the last program, because your question was obviously specific about investors, but who are the investors across the investment landscape, and what are they likely to look at? So we have a very nice diagram here just to help people understand who are investors. You know, financial institutions, it is industry, it is the public sector. You know, two that we are missing here, one is the crowdfunding model, because that is still very much work in progress, and we had a great example of that earlier on in the discussion. But I mean, we need to, and we are working very hard to make that more mainstream and figure out a way that can become a bit more mainstream. And then I guess the other one is your corporates, because again, you know, a lot of the work we're doing with cities at the moment is just to understand what corporates bring to the table. Most large corporates will have sustainability or impact budgets at a sort of group level. They'll also have marketing and sponsorship opportunities, which are great ways to get projects financed without having to worry about a return. And working with cities just to understand the stakeholder map across their sort of city is another crucial thing that we're trying to do in order to just bring broader financing into the space, because you know, it's not just about the various projects we've got going here. Again, if you think about adaptation versus mitigation, most of the funds at the moment are being spent on mitigation in terms of climate change, but adaptation is a crucial part of the discussion, which we need to do more work on and indeed get more funds into, because at the moment adaptation is only taking 10% of the money that's coming into the wider impact space. But yeah, very happy, appreciate we're running out of time, but obviously happy to come back on at a later date and talk about some of these concepts in a bit more detail, or take questions or organized calls at a later date. So please do reach out if you want to know more. That's what we're here to do, and hopefully helping you all figure it out and figure out how we finance some of these projects.
Thanks, Alison, and thank you very much for reminding all of us that we are using a kind of a shortcut when we say investors. And the first thing that comes to our mind when we say investors is usually private investment funds, etc. But of course, investors are everyone who is interested and financially ready to invest in a project, and those are very many stakeholders. It's good to remember about it because that also shows all of the options. So now let's go to DG Regio in Jeva, because what you do is very interesting on a little bit different level or from a little bit different perspective, because you are really discussing what's needed to make innovative financing possible and available from the point of view of the practices, the cooperation with investors, with the national level, the legislation, etc. Could you tell us a bit more about that from this perspective, and also so that everyone understands the division of tasks and support opportunities between the three agencies we have here today?
Thank you very much, Sylvia, and good morning to all the participants, and thank you very much for all the practical projects and examples that other panelists shared. So I work in DG Regio, responsible for implementation of cohesion policy and specifically European regional development funds and cohesion funds. We work with member states managing authorities in shared management. So what it means is that the EU support is managed by the managing authorities in the member states, and for this, every 7 years we are negotiating programs where we agree with the member states how the money will be used over the 7 years, and we finalized negotiations last year for the programming period 21-27, and we are finishing the programming period 14-20. So the green activities, energy efficiency, climate neutral activities are very high on the agenda of the member states, and in the programs, managing authorities dedicate important resources for this purpose. And as I mentioned, we implement this EU support, ERDF and Cohesion Fund in shared management with member states. So here, and this support can be implemented through grants, but also financial instruments. And this is where our unit responsible for financial instruments come in. And we want indeed that there are more efficient ways of managing resources, and we think that with public support, there we can do more in terms of promoting efficient and sustainable way to support Green Deal and Green Agenda. So from a financial instruments perspective, so as already Alison mentioned, so we speak about loans, equity and guarantees. This is what is possible in our common provisions regulation if we use financial instruments. So financial instruments help to trigger investment on the ground for revenue generating and cost saving activities, and it also maximizes private investment in addition to the public support. So, and it is a tool to, because we speak about cohesion policy and its objectives, and it's also policy delivery tool. What is important is that, as I said, we want to do more with public funds, and our financial instruments have this potential to leverage private contributions, so that private investors are more interested to invest along public funds. So we give this de-risk aspect of for the private investors. And another good thing is, and I saw in one of the slides in France that you spoke about the revolving funds. So the money that was invested normally comes back to the region and it can be reinvested again. So there is more money available for implementing activities. And with the legal framework of the Common Provisions Regulations, we extended the possibilities where a grant component can be combined with financial instruments, so to address market failures and to encourage using financial instruments and to address investment areas like creating incentives to do more green activities, reducing carbon footprint, and also addressing social aspects and reaching more final recipients. So for this purpose, we in our unit, we created and worked on the two models. And one of them, the model for energy efficiency, financial instrument with a grant component, is specifically developed to address energy efficiency market failures. And this is a model addressed mostly for managing authorities, but at the same time, it's also interesting information for the financial intermediaries, banks, other financial institutions who would be interested in investing in these activities. And we think that with this model, we will encourage and make sure that all the market failures, as concerns energy efficiency investments, they incentivize project promoters to increase their interest in, let's say, deep renovation or even to carry out energy efficiency at all measures. Often, as a market failure is cited, long payback time or limited financial return. So here again, the grant component may incentivize financial intermediaries to come along, and this grant component may facilitate the interest of private sector. And if we speak about final recipients, for example, households in residential buildings, for example, we often come across this social issue and limited financial capacity. So our instruments can intervene there and to facilitate energy efficiency in buildings. So we are not asking final recipients to contribute, but there is money available for the investment to take place, and through this reduced bills, the households can repay the loans, but also in some instances it is possible to reduce the amount that households pay, or not with a grant component they don't pay it at all. So these are the this is one of the model, and on similar principles we have built another model for New Europe to address New European Bauhaus. Maybe you have heard the initiative of our president of the Commission, and here it's more addressed to the urban development. And one of the values that New European Bauhaus promotes is sustainability. So it's also a possibility to address urban issues and green measures. And very briefly, because I talked too much, I just wanted to say some words about advisory that would be available for the managing authorities that are implementing our EU shared management funds. It's a FI Compass platform together between the Commission and the EIB, European Investment Bank, and here this is a platform that helps to facilitate capacity in setting up and implementing shared management financial instruments. And also one of the aspects of this advisory is support package for the design and implementation of financial instruments, which is made available for the managing authority. So if there is an interest in your regions or at the national level to set up financial instruments, please let us know, and then we can see what kind of support we can provide. So this is member state specific support. So the models are available. I can provide the link, and I hope this is a different angle, another opportunity to look for financing and also to implement the green measures on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's really important, and I will read from a piece of paper because I got this information yesterday. It's very important on what DG Regio has done cooperating with the European Investment Bank. The FI Compass you mentioned presented yesterday a new publication on the use of cohesion policy for EPC projects. And I think this is really important for many local authorities. So basically the main points are it shows how to synchronize the EPC procurement, the EU grant process, and ESCO requesting financing from EU instruments. I think this is something that many local authorities and ESCOs were looking for. It is now possible to give a grant to a public sector entity and at the same time to use financial instrument to the ESCO for the same project without risk of double financing. Again, this is really important. And the Commission confirmed that there is no state aid when the grant is paid directly to the public body that is procuring EPC. So I think this is really a fantastic news, and for some local authorities, it might hopefully solve the problem or at least make it a little bit easier. Thank you very much, everyone. We have run out of time, and I'm conscious that you are very busy, but it's been a fascinating discussion with all of you, all of the 11 of you. I have a feeling from this last panel that there is a lot more available that many of us are aware of. And there is a lot of new opportunities, support programs, facilitation programs that are available. Also, when Christina mentioned the scope of capacity building projects, Horizon, etc., it's important to really remember what she said, because those soft projects that for some people might seem a little bit too much fast to, invest in writing the proposal. It does soft projects, not that much money, but actually those projects in many cases have led to large investments, because piloting EPC have actually led to hard projects, like in case of Valladolid, right? It was a Horizon project, not a big budget for that project, and it led to thermo modernization of around 20 buildings. I always forget the total number, but it shows you that you can use those soft, small projects working with international partners and actually achieve what you are looking for. So thank you very much, everyone. If you have 2 more minutes and focusing on what many of you said about the dialogue, and I think it also shows a lot of hope for public authorities who are a little bit afraid that the EU level is so far away and so high up that their concerns and their reality never reaches EU institutions. I think we have shown today that it does, and that there is willingness for dialogue and consultations. I wonder if we can summarize in one sentence your main takeaways from the presentations of the other panel. So for you EU guys and investors, the perspective of the cities they have shared with us, and on the other hand, the perspective, you guys from the cities public authorities, if you could reflect in one sentence on what you have heard from our guests from EU agencies in terms of your takeaways, and maybe one suggestion for future in terms of access to financing. Shall we start with Georg, since I have him on the screen first?
Thanks.
One sentence.
Yes.
Can be a long one.
Possibly get inspired by the flexible and brave postulate, which I can personally, of course, subscribe to. And that could also apply to our interventions, maybe. My inspiration from today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christina.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's a message that I also been hearing in the past. Well, these meetings I was mentioning earlier and different contractors meetings and different synergy meetings that we have organized. A key message is the need for dialogue in the different administration levels. So indeed, there is a lot of energy at local and regional and a lot of need to do things that are coming from the EU in terms of directives and all that. But the need for dialogue at the different levels of administration at the national context is key, because yeah, otherwise there is a lot of energy but can actually hit a wall sometimes. So yeah, that's definitely something that we take away and we keep hearing. So yeah, I would mention that.
Thanks a lot. Alison, what are your takeaways and suggestions? One.
I think there's some great examples of stuff that's working out there, and the question for me is how we ramp that up and share that knowledge base across the board, because you know, we've had a great set of examples of numerous things today. So discussion, networking, chatting, you know, there's plenty of people doing some great work out there. We just need to scale that up at a rapid pace.
Thanks a lot. Eva?
Thank you. From our perspective and my perspective, I would say it's important to have the dialogue between the project promoters, investors, the financial intermediaries, and managing authorities, because the money is available. There is various type of support available, advisory, and the dialogue is important to create the project pipeline, and the project pipeline is a key success for taking up these financial instruments that are available, and seeing the interventions from the first two panels. There are project ideas, there are projects available, so I think this dialogue to take them forward for this innovative financing, it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Let's go back panel by panel then. So Miguel, if you could also summarize.
Yeah, well, actually, it's really challenging to summarize, but I think I would say that cooperation is somehow the engine that for the change that we need in order to achieve this well, big objective that we have towards climate neutrality.
Tanela?
Well, I think I could summarize everything in that we need to stop pretending we have a bottom-up approach, because really we don't have it, and that we need to stop, that we need to start the bottom-up approach in the real terms, because as we see, local governments and citizens are very proactive, but the national level is still something that is stopping lots of initiatives and projects. So yes, we need cooperation, we need collaboration, co-creation, etc.
Thank you, Sanela. And I wonder if it's similar for Sandrine.
Yeah, we have so many things, so many challenges in front of us, but it is really interesting to be able to share our experiences. It's really inspiring for us. And we can stop lasting. I don't find the name in English. Perdre du temps, lose time. And it is also nice to see that lots of agencies and EU commissions, departments are able to help us to find solutions to inspire us for new financial instruments. So thanks for all.
Thank you, Sandrine. Vlasta, over to you for the final thought.
Yeah, so I'm more of the action woman. So yes, I think our national authorities, especially financial authorities, they use really not enough, or even they don't use all these instruments, models, methods, and help that was developed by European Commission, different DGs, and all around. So I think we all others do. And me as a political representative, I also have a reserved seat in the Committee of Region. So me personally, and through the therein, you know, the European Federation of Cities and Regions and Agency, we will now push to the Committee of Regions to act in this way, because they also propose some idea of Green Deal goes local. So they recognize that really all the implementation is done on the local level. So we have to act. So we will try, as me personally, and also as a part of the therein, to push, to ask, to please the people at the Committee of Region to bring out this issue that national, especially financial authorities, don't really understand well how important climate and energy issue are at that moment, and that there is a lot of money, but they need to support us at the local and regional level really to act. So I think I will be proactive in this way. So, and thank you very much for today's discussion, because I think it was really useful.
Thank you very much, Vlasta. Jolijn, last sentence from you.
Thank
I
you.
hope you are more optimistic after the last news.
Well, thank you for this interesting webinar. And just as one or two sentences, I completely subscribe what Vlasta just mentions, and I hope this will have the right effect. And concerning hope, I was really happy to hear that there's so much positive energy and with the aim to have positive effects in the local reality. And the challenge is just to connect and to make it happen. So this helps very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And over for the last comment from Alicia.
Yeah, just to add from my side to the discussion, I will add that continue learning, continue increasing our knowledge, because there are many options, many programs, and many possibilities to develop and do things in the city. So let's move on and let's keep on moving, because we can make it.
Thank you. Alison, have I forgotten you? I just realized that I think I haven't asked you for the final thoughts. Alison is frozen, I think. Right. So the final thought from me, thank you very much. I really appreciate your readiness and your time and your flexibility also to stay for longer. Please do remember that we do have opportunities coming up. Do join the policy dialogue we are organizing. The more voices, the more responses we get, the more representative it will be. And we will continue doing what we did today, because we really want to facilitate this link between the local level and those who need to hear about your experiences and needs. Please do be hopeful and follow our news. And also we are very happy as Prospect to facilitate the contact between all of you, all of the participants and our speakers, if there will be a wish for that. So we will publish all the news, all the links, all the news as well, and a comprehensive write-up. Do contact us in case of any questions, since we ran out of time today. And yes, let's be in touch. Let's continue being in touch. And please do wait for some more emails from me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And follow us on LinkedIn as